All right, so I think we'll get started. First of all, welcome. Thanks for joining us. I'm Bob Long. I'm a former St. Paul City Council member and former president of the League of Minnesota Cities, and I'm joined today by a number of people who introduce themselves in a moment, but I'm joined up front here with a really tall guy, former Hennepin County Commissioner, Board Chair, and past president of the Association of Minnesota Counties, John Derus. And John and I, as two statewide association past presidents with the cities and counties, frankly, have been talking to a lot of our colleagues, both past and present elected officials, the last just several days, and it became very apparent that this group that we have called Community Leaders for Dayton needed to come together, because this group of people standing behind this, and you've got a list that shows another 46 members so far, but that's growing every day, have come to conclude that Dayton is the only candidate that's going to strengthen our communities, create jobs, and prevent massive property tax increases at the local level as being proposed by the two candidates. So that's why we're here today, and this is a group of leaders from across the state that don't run for office in most of the cities as Democrats or Republicans. So frankly, we can't tell you. I've known some of these people for years. I couldn't tell you if they're Democrat or Republican. So it truly is a bipartisan, community level, grassroots level support around the state. And we just are being joined by County Commissioner Peter McLaughlin from Hennepin County. Thanks, Peter. But before we go any further, we just have 4 official speakers today, so we'll keep it short. I want everybody just to take a moment to introduce themselves, who they are, where they're from, so you kind of get a sense of the geographic diversity. And so let's start with the newest guy coming in the room.
Thank you. Peter McLaughlin from the Hennepin County Board. Chris Coleman, St. Paul.
Lee Hogan, St. Paul City Council.
Kathy Lantry, St. Paul City Council.
John Derus, former Hennepin County Commissioner.
R.T. Rybak, Minneapolis.
Dave Bartholomew, Mayor of Circle Pines.
Steve O'Neill, St. Louis County Commissioner.
I'm sorry. Hal Leland, Mayor of Fergus Falls.
Bruce Algren, Mayor of Cloquet.
David Bodette, Mayor of the City of Park Heights.
So thank you. And you, again, the list, as you have on the press release, I think we officially have 46 members on there. There's actually a number of folks who have just come in the last couple of days. We couldn't even get them on the list fast enough. So it's a real heartfelt sense among community leaders that run for office at the local level, not as Democrats or Republicans, but to really serve their communities, who really understand the potential impacts of the budget plans of the two other candidates, and also believe that the Dayton plan not only avoids those property tax increases, but will truly create jobs at the local level in a way that the other candidates' plans won't. So with that, I'm going to turn it over first to our first speaker, who we think drove the furthest, the Mayor of Fergus Falls. Hal?
Thank you, Bob. I drove from Fergus Falls this morning to endorse Mark Dayton, because without his policies for strengthening the state-local partnership, many of our towns and cities just won't be viable places to live, to raise a family, or to grow a business. The continued state cuts to local cities has resulted in a 64% statewide property tax increase, with severe cuts to services like police, fire, libraries, parks, and recreational programs. Public safety is the largest item in the Fergus Falls city budget. It has had to take also the most severe cuts. We are unable to replace much-needed equipment, upgrades to our technology, and cannot adequately compensate, retain, or replace essential personnel. Our library resources and hours have had to be reduced at a time when the demand for internet access and services are increasing. Parks and recreation programs suffer from forced reductions in funding and personnel. Since 2003, Fergus Falls has experienced a 78% increase in property taxes, and the levy increase for another 10.5% in 2011. The impact of the cutting most is obvious and evident in the condition of our streets. We cannot repair and maintain them at an acceptable level, and replacing their infrastructure is impossibly costly. We simply cannot let this trend continue and expect people to stay in our towns and communities. Clearly, Mark Dayton is the best position to help cities confront these enormous challenges, and as well as the state's revenue shortfall. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor. Our next speaker is Mayor Chris Coleman from St. Paul.
Hal, you have a voice that you should be on the radio. Yeah. It's a resonant voice. I love that.
Good morning, everyone. It's good to be here again. This is in some ways a reflection of a lot of the conversations that we've had over the last several years, the challenges that local communities, counties, cities across the state of Minnesota are facing, the challenges that we have had to keep our property taxes low while providing quality services, basic services, public safety services in our communities. These are challenging times. And I've talked with mayors and county commissioners and city council members across the state of Minnesota that have, just as the mayor from Fergus Falls has outlined, really tried to do the best that they could possibly do, given the situations, given the challenges that they face. But we are at a breaking point, I think, in a lot of our communities. If I look just at the city of St. Paul, we struggled mightily to keep our property tax at zero this year. That was a real challenge to do that. But it was also a challenge that was we were able to meet because of the commitment that the state had to our community through local government aid. The fact that if we receive the local government aid that has been committed to us, that has been promised to us, we can not only maintain public safety services, quality services in our community, but we can do it by keeping our property tax levy flat. Now, I know that not every community can do that, but I know that I get the daily clippings from the Minnesota, the League of Cities, and every community is, I think, struggling with this exact same thing. How do we keep our property taxes as low as possible while doing the basic things that our citizens and our residents have asked us to do? So this is a challenge. The fact of the matter is there's a candidate for governor in Tom Emmer that has made it very clear so far about the only thing that he's outlined in terms of where he would cut the state budget is in the support that the state has provided to counties and to cities across the state of Minnesota. That is absolutely unacceptable. The other candidate, Tom Emmer, Tom Horner, has not suggested that he would do anything other than what Tom Emmer would do as well. Mark Dayton is the only one that has made it very clear that he understands the relationship between cities and the state, between counties and the state. He is the only one that understands, in my opinion, that it is the cities and the counties that provide public safety services and other critical services to make sure that our state is strong, to make sure that we have a good work environment, a good environment where people can come, form a business and thrive, and have the educated employees that are necessary to be able to take the positions in a 21st century workforce. We need to strengthen our communities. We need to make sure that every city across the state of Minnesota, every county, all 87 of them across the state of Minnesota are strong and they're moving forward. The two Toms take our community in the wrong direction, take our state in the wrong direction. We need to move forward, and we'll move forward under Governor Dayton.
Thank you, Mayor. Next speaker is the mayor of Minneapolis, Mark Rybak.
Thank you very much, and it's great to be standing here with colleagues, and I think we've all gotten to know each other very well over these last few years, not always in great moments, but in trying to fight for the basic services we have. You know, in tough times, you have to get back to the basics, and the most basic thing that government provides are the basic services at a local level. Police officers, firefighters, fixing the streets, making sure you invest in those very basic things at a local community. That's not rocket science, but it's definitely a very foreign concept to the leadership in the governor's office over these last few years. Tim Pawlenty, strongly supported by Tom Emmer, has waged war on local services in this state. It's been a dramatic cut, a disproportionate cut, and one that I think is not only ill-advised, but also is simply bad fiscal policy. Here's the fact, that when somebody pays property taxes in a local community, they need basic services. What's happened, unfortunately, is that as the state has made huge cuts to local units of government, property taxes have risen across this state. You're the reporters, and I have to say I can't remember where I read this, but didn't I read somewhere that Tom Emmer at a local level voted to raise property taxes? Am I right on that, guys? 14%, okay. When he was at a local level, he came to the state capitol, but he raised property taxes here too. He raised property taxes because he voted with Tim Pawlenty as Tim Pawlenty dramatically cut local government aid. That led to dramatic property tax increases around this state. We've read a lot about who's going to raise taxes in this campaign, but Tom Emmer will raise your taxes. He did it at a local level. He did it at the state. He will do it as a governor. The only difference is Mark Dayton is going to be honest with you, and that's a huge difference because these are people who solve problems at a local level. That's what we do. One of the great things about being a local official over these last few years is that we've gotten to know each other very well across ideological lines. I, too, don't know the party of most of the local officials I deal with in this state. We've had to come together as we've gone around this state trying to make sure that we tell the story about how important local services are. Now, I don't think anybody is fantasizing that there are great resources for the next governor. There's going to be sacrifice. We stand ready to do that. We stand ready to work together. Commissioner McLaughlin and I worked on something that was very difficult, to merge a city and a county library system. That continues to be complicated. That's what we do for a living. We'll work together, but we need a governor who will be honest, who will work with us, and who will recognize that in tough times you invest in the basics, and that means basic services at a local level.
Thanks, Mayor. And our final speaker is John Derus, former Hennepin County Commissioner and former President of the Association of Minnesota Counties. John.
There's no place in Minnesota that's on the cutting edge more of what's gone wrong in our society than county government. And one of the places you see that most dramatically is in the core of Hennepin County, where some of the poorest people in the state of Minnesota live and are losing services daily. I've asked a colleague of mine to join me today who understands that better than anybody. Peter McLaughlin represents that core. He sees those problems firsthand. And county government is the unit of government that the federal and state governments use to address these problems. And the steady drumbeat in the reduction of those services is reflected no place worse than in the urban part of Hennepin County. And I asked Peter McLaughlin to come here today, who is a very gifted county commissioner, to make a few remarks. Peter?
Thank you. You know, local government needs a partner in the governor's office again, folks. It's been a long, long time since we've had one, and Mark Dayton's going to be that partner. I just came from a meeting of superintendents of schools from Hennepin County. It was a great group of people. They were committed to the education of the young people in our county. They were concerned, but they had a vision for the future and were willing to work hard, make the changes necessary to make a success for our kids. You know, the future is what this election is about. We need a governor who's going to be our partner, hand in hand with us at the local level, where we're educating children, where we're building transit systems, where we're taking care of police and fire and parks. We don't need a governor like the one we have right now, who has used local governments as an ideological punching bag and creating this phony business about no new taxes, when in fact he's dumping responsibilities on local governments, raising property taxes at the local level, and diminishing the quality of life in our communities. This is about the future. From where I sit as a county official, we're dealing with health care. We are dealing with health care of the poorest people in the state of Minnesota. This governor, for ideological purposes, is not even going to participate in the national health care reform, where we're going to actually provide coverage for Minnesotans who are uncovered, getting them out of the emergency room and actually into a clinic where they can get high quality care on an ongoing basis. We need a partner in the governor's office who will do just that, and that partner will be Mark Dayton. Mayor Rybak talked about our merging of the library systems, combining Minneapolis and Hennepin County library systems. We reopened 3 libraries that had been closed for fiscal reasons. We've expanded hours in those libraries, but Governor Pawlenty, he saw fit to line item veto the money that the legislature had appropriated to combine the 2 systems. Some of the costs, like combining the fact that we had 2 different book filing systems, the Dewey Decimal and the congressional system. He line item vetoed that. A great reform that's saving money. He vetoed the effort to make it happen. So we need a partner. We need a governor who's going to be committed to the future, concerned about local communities and the people in local communities, and that person's Mark Dayton. I've worked with Mark Dayton for over 30 years. He's worked in virtually every community in this state to make it better. He's reached out to create jobs, to build a state that we can be proud of. It's time to get back on a path here of partnership with local government and creating a state that we can all be proud of and we can all prosper in. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Well, that's going to conclude our speakers. So we now are open for questions, and I'll act as moderator, but feel free to direct it at any one of our guests up here, or general questions, however you want to do it. So, go ahead.
I know you guys run on nonpartisan ballots, but a lot of your partisan affiliation is known. Are there any present Republicans up here among you? Can you raise your hand if you consider yourself a Republican?
Prepared to admit that.
Yeah. And to be honest with you, that's why I kind of opened my remarks.
Well,
with,
let them give the
Oh,
details.
sorry.
if that's
Can
okay.
I just tell you, I grew up in North Dakota, and
I
they're
guess I
all
want you to come up here.
Republicans.
Mayor, come on up here.
I just want to say, I grew up in North Dakota. Everyone there is a Republican. And all of the politics, or whatever you want to call it, are conservative, fiscally responsible people. And that's what we all are, whether we have a label or not. But we have to be neutral in this process as best we can and try to represent all of our constituents to the best of our ability, and that's why we're taking on the responsibility, whether we're accused of being one party or another, of doing what's right for our communities and for the state.
If most of you are Democrats, and yesterday we saw some endorsements for Tom Emmer from a business group, earlier this week Tom Horner, do you think that these endorsements really matter to voters? Especially from groups that they might expect to see
I don't think,
one candidate or another?
yeah, frankly, I don't think a list of names is as impressive as the fact that these are people who've been trying to solve problems for a long, long time and haven't found a partner here at the Capitol. I mean, the reality with Mark Dayton is that this is a guy who was the former state auditor who worked for years trying to make government more efficient. And those of us at a local level desperately need somebody who understands it. Mark Dayton comes into the governor's office with more background in the partnership between local and state government than any governor in modern memory. This is really important. So the names on our lapels or our labels isn't the key point here. The point is that we're about to, I hope, have a governor who understands how to work with us.
Let me add this. Here's what I hope comes out of this. I hope people start analyzing what's important to them based on the conversation that we will take to the community across the state of Minnesota. Do you value libraries? Because if you value libraries, they're more likely to be thriving under Governor Mark Dayton than they would under Tom Emmer or Tom Horner. Do you value low property taxes? Because they're likely to stay lower under Governor Dayton than they would under Horner or Emmer. Do you value public safety? We are more likely to provide strong public safety services under Governor Dayton than we would under Governor Horner or Governor Emmer. The fact of the matter is, break down what it is that you value in your community, break down what it is that you want in your community, and look at who is more likely to be able to provide that in the governor's office. That is clearly the case if you look at Mark Dayton. So whether they like the fact that a group of local elected officials are standing here, whether that matters anything, I hope at least that gets them to understand, look at what the consequences of this election will be for the things that they value the most in their community.
Mark Dayton still has about $1 billion gap in his budget. How worried are you guys that he would have to come forward and ask to dig a little deeper from cities and counties?
Well, I would hope a governor would walk in and ask us to sacrifice. They're going to have to. None of us has the fantasy that the next governor is going to walk in with a bucket of money. I do know that Mark Dayton has actually put out a budget that is credible. In the middle of a campaign, he's trying to figure out a way to balance the state's budget. Tom Emmer has literally not given us any detail about what he will do as governor except cut police officers, firefighters, road improvements at a local level. So I've heard very little from Tom Emmer, but what I've heard I think should scare the heck out of any Minnesotan about the quality of their community.
But, and I'll just say, it's, other mayors join in, other county commissioners, please jump in. I'm a lot more concerned about the gap that Mark Dayton has in his budget than the fact that we have a candidate for governor in Tom Emmer that doesn't even pretends like it doesn't exist. He's running around acting like we have a surplus next year, and that is complete fantasy. So you can argue that Mark's numbers haven't quite added up or that there's some wiggle room in this thing, but at least he's acknowledged the seriousness of the problem. At least he's acknowledged that it's real. Tom Emmer hasn't even acknowledged that this very real budget deficit exists. I don't know how you can even pretend that you're capable of governing the state if you don't even understand the state that the state is in.
I don't think that anyone has said, that I know of in the county and the cities, that we're not going to participate, because we told Governor Pawlenty that we'll participate in the cuts. But the cuts that we've taken have been way above and beyond what the cities and counties can handle. Cloquet, small town of 12,000 people, has lost $5.5 million since 2003. That's a lot for a small town.
This meeting I was at this morning with superintendents of school, 3 county commissioners from Hennepin County, we understand that there's an imperative to change at the local level. We get it. And we're doing that. We're figuring out how to share social workers. We're figuring out how to share data and work with these same kids that are in trouble in school and in trouble with the juvenile justice system. That's what we understand our job's going to be. There's going to be change. There's an imperative for change at the local level. Mark Dayton understands it, and he'll do it with us. He won't do it to us, which is what this governor's done, what Tom Emmer will do. And that's the difference. That's why we're here. We understand he'll be a partner with us to make the changes that are necessary to balance the budget and keep our community strong.
And I'm Kathy Lantry from the St. Paul City Council, and one of the primary jobs of the St. Paul City Council is the budget. And to suggest that all of a sudden we anticipate that Mark Dayton is going to be our savior. The fact is that we've been trying to work with a governor who has cut the city of St. Paul tens of millions of dollars since 2003. We just wanted to have an opportunity to have a seat at the table, which we haven't had for years and years and years. And I think the statement of we want to do it with the state rather than have the state do it to us, because we have been creative and have been innovative. To suggest that we've just been sort of against everything is not the truth.
My greatest concern is the mentality that by taking away from Greater Minnesota, cutting their resources, their services, that it's going to certainly help balance the state budget, but it's going to weaken the very fabric of what we've all been trying to accomplish, and that's economic viability, livability in all of our communities. This cannot continue. It just has to be addressed, and it has to be addressed in a fair way, or the entire state is going to get out of any kind of competitive mode that we've ever had. So we have to stop trying to dismantle a big part of the state and hope that it will balance the rest of it. It can't continue.
Any other questions? I'm just going to wrap up by saying thanks to all of our leaders who were able to make it. Some drove a long way to be here, and because I personally have talked to a number of people who are on this list, I have to close by saying how I opened. There's a lot of people on this list who truly are not partisan political people. They're council members in small towns, mayors in small towns. They didn't run for Democrat or Republican office. In fact, they're even uncomfortable having their name on a public list in a partisan race, but they've done it because they know in their community the difference. And we haven't had such a stark contrast in Minnesota electoral politics in so many years, but in this case we've had people who've never been politically involved in a partisan race come forward and say, for my community, there's a difference, and it's Mark Dayton that will strengthen our community and avoid these property tax increases the other 2 candidates are clearly proposing. But let's be honest about it. Let's be upfront about it. That's what will happen, and that's why these folks have stepped out. And that's the other people on the list. If they were here, they could tell you the same thing. But I'm speaking on their behalf, so you get that flavor of where this is coming from.
Wow.
John,
I think I'd like to hear from the commissioner from St. Louis County because they have been especially hard hit by.
Thank you. Thanks. We have been hard hit, and this year we cut our discharge planning in our county jail, a way to keep people from coming back over and over to jail, which would save counties lots of money, and it's been done well in a number of counties. But, you know, there are upfront investments that we could not continue to make. Last year we cut our award-winning assisted living program in low-income public housing. 16 jobs were lost. And I could go on and on. You know, our roads are in terrible shape. We have cut and cut and cut, and I think, obviously has been said, most of our work is completely nonpartisan. You know, we don't talk about Republican and Democratic. We don't have that kind of caucus thing. We're there to figure out how to solve those local problems, how to balance our budget at the end of the year without any tomfoolery. And it's a tough job, but we need a partner in St. Paul. We need a partner in the governor's office, and we really believe that Mark Dayton would be the person that we can work with, as has been said, in a variety of good ways. Thanks.